Hi everyone. My name is Nupur and I am from the Coacharya team. And today I'm joined with our lovely trainer Tracy, who's also a Coacharya alumni. Tracy, could you tell us a bit more about yourself, please?
Absolutely. So yes, I'm a Coacharya alumni. I'm a PCC coach. I'm also a coach educator. So I lead level 1 and level 2 ICF training programs with Coacharya. And I also have my own practice as well. And my focus is on mindfulness, mindful leadership, also around communication coaching. And yeah, that's my focus and it's also my passion.
Lovely. And you've also been studying somatics, right? Like that's also something you've been practicing.
Absolutely. So that blends into the mindfulness approach. Even though it has this misleading name of mindfulness, it's really about like a full body awareness because our minds aren't floating around out in outer space. They're encased in a body that tends to have its own reactions and its own wisdom as well when we access it.
So true. Um, so tell us a bit about your coaching journey. How did it start? What got you into coaching, and how has it been so far?
Well, how it started was why don't I start with how it's been? It's been incredible. It's been it has been the most transformative thing that I've ever done in my life. And it started some years back because I was doing coaching in a formal role. And when I was considering a pivot, I was like, oh, this makes sense. Why don't I go into coaching? And at that time, I was really interested in meditation. So I looked at different programs. And what really spoke to me about Coach Aria was the east west approach. I was really excited by that. And at the time, I decided, okay, like I'm going to go into this journey. And a friend of mine asked me because I was debating, like, do I do this? Do I do something else? And she said, "Do you feel like this will change your life? Will it be worth it if it changes your life, actually?" And I said, it just like clicked into place in that moment. And I said, "Yeah, it will be." And it did. It really was one of the most life-changing decisions that I have ever made.
Wow, that sounds so wholesome, if I can say so. And so today we are specifically here to talk about um, conscious leadership. What does the word mean to you? And yeah, what do you think about conscious leadership? What is it?
Well, I think like I'm really glad that you led in by asking me around how this journey has been for me because I think that if I were to verbalize what really changed for me, it was conscious leadership. Um, so and let's break that apart a little bit, right? So when we look at being conscious, it means being aware, being present, and it also means to me at least having a conscious, right? Having a conscience. So being connected at a deep level to our values and being aware of how those values are showing up for us and how we're living those values in our day-to-day moment to moment lives. And then so that's the conscious part of it. And then being a leader, and this applies whether or not you're in a role that you're called a leader or not. Being a leader means taking responsibility. It means making conscious choices and taking responsibility for those choices. It means living with integrity, which means also being intentional about what we're doing while we're doing it, as opposed to letting life, of course, to some extent, we need to be able, life does its thing and we have to respond to it in the moment. But conscious leadership means that we're showing up in that moment as the best we can instead of letting our circumstances lead us.
I really liked when you said that showing up in a way that in our best way, like you said, best way we can instead of our circumstances letting us lead. Um, what does this mean on a day-to-day basis for a leader, probably? What, I mean, leadership today is very, very, very demanding, right? Um, so what what can a leader do to be more conscious? And how would a conscious leader show in situations that are difficult? I know I asked two questions, but
Yeah. So I think, like, first of all, life is uncertain. Things ebb and flow, and you're right. We leaders are in situations that are highly demanding, right? And they're demanding a lot in that moment. And sometimes we don't know what the moment is going to bring. And sometimes what it brings is almost too much to deal with. So conscious leadership isn't about trying to be perfect. It's not about trying to control every moment, because that's not being conscious. We can't do that. We only have a certain realm that's within our control. And we, as I said, we can only respond as best we can. So being conscious is acknowledging that there are elements outside of us that we can't predict and that we can't control. But the only thing that we can do is show up in a way that's connected to our values and be present to that. And so when I say, like, conscious leaders don't let circumstances lead them, that doesn't mean that sometimes things will happen that we have no control over. Or, sorry, it doesn't mean that that won't happen, right? Like, our circumstances at times are going to end up impacting us in ways that we can't predict or expect. But when we're conscious leaders, we're not excusing our behavior because of our external circumstances. We're still doing the best that we can in that moment. And we're also acknowledging that we are going to make mistakes. That's a part of life. And when we do, we just take responsibility for them.
so what I'm hearing is a conscious leader is aware of themselves. They're aware that not everything is going to be in their control, and yet they will show up in the best way possible that is aligned with their values and beliefs. And they will take full responsibility of who they are, right? Um, what I'm also wondering is how does a conscious leader show up as a team player or someone who is leading a team? What does it mean for them to be part of an organization? You know, how do they show up in situations like that? And how does coaching fit into all of this?
Yeah. So I'm going to back up a little bit, because when you said values and beliefs, I want to address that for a moment. So when we're conscious leaders, we are aware of our beliefs, but we don't act out of them. Because for the exact reason that you actually just said, we're part of a team, right? We're part of a bigger purpose. And so sometimes what we individually hold as um, our beliefs can be driving forces, but they can also be limiting forces. So, what we need to do is be very strongly connected to our values. We need to be aware of our beliefs as they're showing up, but we need to act in a way that is connected to the greater good. And so when we're a part of a team, the greater good is that team, right? It's like we have a mandate that we're acting on behalf of our organization, and we're responsible for the team that we're leading. And that team is a system within itself. And so when we're conscious as a leader, we're taking responsibility for that system, and we're acting in such a way that aligns with the needs of the team and the needs of the organization, while still being deeply connected to our values and our ethics as well.
So now I'm really curious to know about, we spoke about teams, we spoke about, there are going to be times when values and beliefs that we as individuals hold or conscious leader holds are going to be different from that of their team or different than that of maybe even the organization. Um, how does a conscious leader then navigate through such different belief systems and such different value system while still being um, true to their own beliefs and values while being able to hold space for others?
So again, I think it comes down to taking responsibility. We take responsibility. We may have certain beliefs and values, and those are going to be different from other people's beliefs and values. So we have to, first of all, recognize that there is no universal truth out there, right? What I believe is going to be different from what you believe. Um, Ideally, our values are all aligned. I mean, that's another story. Sometimes those things can come into conflict. And I think that that's the scope of another conversation. But ultimately, so we can prioritize the needs of our organization and we can prioritize the needs of our teams, but we can still do that in a way that's aligned with our values. So in other words, we're not compromising our integrity to get to a goal because it's going to end up impacting someone. It's going to end up impacting ourselves. It's going to impact our team. It's going to impact the organization. So basically, when we have a value forward approach, we're able to, and again, that's where coaching is aligned. When we're as coaches, what we do is we look at our goals, we align them with an underlying value, right? What's motivating us towards this goal? What will be possible when we achieve that? So whenever we have a positive vision in mind, it's a lot easier to keep connected to our values as opposed to when we're making decisions out of fear. And I think that that's where we go wrong as humans, as leaders. We think if we don't do this, then this will happen. And then we put all our energy into avoiding what it is that we don't want instead of aligning with the vision of what we want and need to happen.
That's amazing. Um, yeah. So you did touch up about how coaching kind of fits in, but can we go into more details as to how coaching can help someone become a more conscious leader or a more conscious human being in general?
Absolutely. So, one of the first things that we learn when we learn about coaching, whether and regardless of what level anyone's going into in a coaching program, is we learn about the coaching mindset. We learn about the coaching mindset, which is open, which is flexible, which is client centric, right? And so we need that. Client centric really means human centric. So it means that we're connected to other humans and holding them in a way that we are valuing them. And that also includes valuing ourselves. Being flexible means that we are able to adapt and respond to the ups and downs that life inevitably brings. That are, or our day-to-day life, whether that's personal or professional. And being open means being open-minded, being open-hearted, being open also in terms of who we are and basically what you see is what you get. And then that kind of leads into the ethical approach. So we learn a lot about ethics. We learn about the ICF code of ethics. And of course, some of that is very specific to coaching, but some of that also is about integrity. It's about human centricity. It's about taking responsibility. It's about professionality. It's about humanity. It's about diversity. It's about inclusion. So there's all of these things that we learn to embody as coaches in our day-to-day lives. And that's why we call it embodying a coaching mindset. So it's not like there's like a list, you're not walking around with a manual where you're going, okay, well, what does this mean and how do I act, right? We're learning to actually be present in that. And also to recognize, because again, we're not perfect. So to recognize when that slips and then be able to acknowledge and take responsibility for it and address it. Then there's the actual coaching skills that we learn, right? So one of the first things, again, that we learn is about establishing agreements. And that's all about clarity. That's all about working with people. And as a leader, how important is that? You need to be able to create goals, right? You need to be able to actually clarify, okay, above, like what are the organizational goals, right? How will that be measured? What do I need to do to get there, right? How will my own success be measured? How will my organization's success be measured, right? But then also we have to work with that within our teams as well, right? Like what people we need to work with the individuals to establish what their goals, what their measures of success are. And so as coaches, we learn about that. We learn about setting clear and measurable goals that are also really meaningful, right? We're connecting with them at a deeper level. And then we learn all the other beautiful soft skills of coaching. So cultivating trust and safety. So we learn about that in on a personal level, like learning to we can't create trust. We can't cultivate trust for others if we're not trusting ourselves. So the first thing that we have to do is learn how to feel safe within ourselves, how to feel confident, how to feel like we're able to trust that we're going to follow through on what we say we're going to do, right? So again, that comes back to integrity. And then we also learn how to create that for others. So that's psychological safety when we're looking at a team, like creating that type of space that people are safe to take risks, because we're never going to be able to reach stretch goals if we're not taking risks. But no one's going to feel safe to take a risk if they don't feel like in the end the team has got them, right? There has to be some level of safety there. And then we learn the other skills like presence, listening. Those every leader needs to be able to, it's not just about knowing how to speak and how to show up and being the loudest voice in the room. And unfortunately, I think that that's some of the bygone version of what a leader is, really brash and really confident and being out there, right? But we're learning more and more that that's not what it takes to lead. We have to be able to listen. We have to be able to listen to, again, like, what is it that the system needs from me? Right? What is it that I need for myself? And then what is it that I need from my team? And also, what do they need from me? Because they're not just puppets on a string, right? Like they have their own needs too. So listening is key, and listening in an empathetic way, because again, we're all humans, in a generative way, which means listening with our greater vision in mind as well. And then there's awareness. So we as leaders need to be aware. We need to also be able to evoke awareness in others so that, if somebody is coming to us and they're struggling with something, we're able to talk to them, we're able to listen to them. And through that conversation, there will be something new that comes out of that. And that's really as simple that evokes awareness sounds so big, but it's really, really simple. It's as soon as we have a new realization, um, that that's awareness. And then finally, we learn about facilitating growth. And that means that we are able to then take any insights that we have, any new awareness that we have, and actually make steps towards our goal, make steps towards our future, integrate it into our day-to-day lives as well. And anytime we learn about learning approaches, right? We learn about adult learning, that's really facilitating client growth. So as coaches, we also have to be able to facilitate learning.
This all sounded like music to my ears. So what I'm understanding is that that a coach in a lot of ways is a conscious leader. And conscious leadership means to be able to be aware of who you are and to be able to generate that awareness in others, um, to be able to be a good listener, to understand what's going on around you, and to be able to create a space that is psychologically safe and um, allows for growth that a conscious leader can then um, partake in or create in their own ways. Have I got that right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Beautifully put and much more succinctly than what I shared.
No, but I loved what you shared. So that's what led to this, right? You are a great conscious leader.
Well, thank you. And I think that's really important to recognize because we can be a conscious leader, even if, again, and I said this before, but being a conscious leader doesn't mean that you may not actually be a leader in your profession, but being a conscious leader is being a leader in your day to day life. And that's even more powerful than being a leader of a team of, hundreds that has no level of awareness or consciousness or presence or integrity.
Yeah,
We did a webinar recently on courage, and I think that that really speaks to conscious leadership. So it's not
mhm.
about the size of your team, it's about who you are and the responsibility that you take as a leader in your life.
Yeah. It's better to be a drop in the ocean versus like being a thunderstorm of sorts. Mm.
It's better to be a drop in the ocean when you know you're a drop in the ocean rather than being the thunderstorm that thinks it's going to be there forever and it will eventually pass. Yeah.
Nice. That can be a thought for the day. Lovely. So Tracy, tell me, anybody who's joining your programs, whether it's the L1 or the L2, what can they expect from the program itself, and what are you bringing to the table?
Yeah. Well, um, I'm bringing my integrity, I'm bringing my presence, and my heart to the table. Um, and I think that's not, I think, I know that every time I show up with a cohort, that's what I need to put forward first, as well as the needs of the cohort. So every cohort is essentially a team. And we all work together to get everyone across the finish line, but not just across the finish line, to like learn as much as possible. And I find myself learning along with everybody every time, which is such a gift for me. So what can we expect? A lot of conversations like this, a lot of conversations around we learn the skills. Absolutely. The skills are important to learn, but also a lot of conversations about who we need to be while embodying these skills, right? It is about, again, coming down to our values, taking responsibility for our choices, learning how to listen, learning how to open our hearts, be empathetic, be compassionate, and yet still be clear and make choices that are aligned with our goals. And when I say our goals, I mean our goals as a system. So I realized I answered your question in a very general way, but just to be a little more specific as well about what people can expect. So our program is very interactive. So we're not just coming in and I'm not just sitting there showing you slides where you learn about coaching, right? We're learning how to have conversations. We're learning how to communicate. So every session is going to be a discussion. There's going to be a lot of interaction. So people will have an opportunity to coach almost from, even if you haven't coached before, almost from the very first day, or at least within the first couple of classes, there's coaching that starts happening. We're learning how to be present. We're learning how to center ourselves. Um, and we're also just having fun while it all happens. Like I really feel like it's important as coaches, as leaders, as humans, that we don't take ourselves too seriously, that we have a little bit of joy in the moment as well. And so I guess that would be also my final words, or like my closing words to anyone that's interested in joining is connecting to what's really important to you about this journey. What is it that has you, that's opened this up for you, where you're thinking, I want to do this? Connecting deeply to your why and staying connected to that, and trusting yourself that as long as you are always aware of the greater purpose that's driving you to make the choice, whether it's becoming a coach or anything else that you're doing, that you are going to show up in the best way possible. And also just to try to find some lightness in it as well. So enjoy it, smile, be in the moment. Um, that's probably one of the greatest gifts that you can give to the world.